Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself, ma'am.
Shall I start, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, you can start, ma'am.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. You can continue, ma'am.
I can't hear your voice, ma'am.
Ma'am, you can continue, ma'am. You can continue.
Shall I start, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, you can start, ma'am.
Actually, I can't hear your voice.
Ma'am, you are audible, ma'am. You can continue.
Hello?
Ma'am, you can continue, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Okay. So today's topic is psychology of students. It's a very interesting topic, and in today's era, it's a very important topic for the students. Psychology of learning or psychology of students deals with the uh, many field in education with the aim of socializing students and modifying his behavior. According to Crow and Crow, educational psychology describes and explains the learning experiences of an individual from birth through old age. A famous author, Skinner, defines educational psychology as that branch of psychology which deals with teaching and learning. Educational psychology is the systematic study of the educational growth and development of a child. Educational psychology is the science which explains the changes that take place in the individuals as they pass through the various stages of development. It's one of the branches of applied psychology concerned with the application of the principles, techniques, and other resources of psychology to the solution of the problems, confronting the teacher attempting to direct the growth of children toward defined objectives. More specifically, we can say that educational psychology is concerned with an understanding of the child, his development, his need, and the learning situation, including group dynamics as the affect learning. So, the learning situation, including group dynamics as the affect learning to its nature and the ways to make it effective. Stated differently, the central theme of educational psychology is psychology of learning. So it's a very important in the in today's era that how can it is combines two fields, education and psychology. It is the scientific study of human behavior in educational situation. It is concerned with these factors, principles, and techniques which relate to the various aspects of child's growth and development. It is concerned with learning situation and process by which learning can be more efficient and effective. Educational psychology is not as exact as the natural sciences, since the human behavior cannot be predicated exactly because it is dynamic. Educational psychology is a science of education dealing primarily with how, when, and what of education. So it is not a normative science. It is not concerned with the value of education and doesn't concern itself with and what ought to be. It only describes what it is. It is an applied positive science. While psychology deals with the behavior of all individuals or students in all walks of life. It's dealing with the behavior of the student in relation to educational environment. It does not concern with what and why of education. It gives the necessary knowledge and skill for giving education the student in satisfactory way. It's a scope of educational psychology: learner, teacher, learning process, learning content, curriculum, and teaching strategies, evaluation of learning outcome. Some scope of educational psychology are the learner, the learning process, the learning situation, evaluation of learning performance, and the teacher. If we talk about the learner, educational psychology acquaints us with need of knowing the leaves and deals with the techniques of knowing him well. Just like if you talk the student, and if you imagine and if you think that what is the main thing and what is the main approach of the student. So there are included in it the innate abilities and capabilities of the individual differences and their measurements. The overt, convert, concise, as well as unconscious behavior of the learner. The characteristics of his growth and development of each stage, beginning from childhood to adulthood. So, educational psychology acquaints us with the need of knowing and lives and deals with the techniques of knowing him well. Firstly, we should know about that what is he or her. First thing is that what is the main psychology or what is the main current situation or current psychology of the student. After that, if we talk about the learning process, after knowing the learner, firstly we should know the learner and deciding what learning experiences are to be provided. The emerging problem is to help learner in acquiring these learning experiences with ease and confidence. It deals with the nature of learning and how it takes place and contains the topics such as laws, principles, and theories of learning, remembering and forgetting, perceiving, concept formation, thinking, reasoning process, problem solving, transfer of training, ways and means of effective learning, etc. There are many processes of the learning. So after knowing the student and after that designing what learning experiences are to be provided. After learning process, we talk about the learning situation. Learning situation depends upon the learning environmental factors. Learning situation, there are a learner and the teacher. So it also deals with the environment factors and learning situation which come midway between the learner and the teacher. Topics like classroom climate and group dynamics, techniques and aids which facilitate learning, evaluation techniques and practices, guidance and counseling, which help in the smooth functioning of the teaching learning process. Its effect the environment factors and learning situation. So, which come midway between the learner and the teacher and all over things, just like dynamic techniques and aids, and which facilitate learning, evaluation techniques, practices, guidance, and counseling of the student. It helps in the smooth functioning of the teaching and learning process. Next situation is the teaching situation. It suggests the techniques of teaching. It also helps in deciding what learning situation should be provided by teacher to learner according to his mental and physical age, his previous knowledge and interest level, by describing the learner's characteristics and what teaching aids are appropriate for the particular subject. Suppose whenever teacher go to the classroom and a student is not interested in their subject or their field, then what should we do? We have a opportunity that we create or develop our interest to the student accordingly to a student current situation, current scenario, current environment. So it's very basic things that we take a lecture accordingly, according to his current situation, current mindset. Suppose if you take a lecture in the statics, last lecture is the statics, and first lecture is the statics, and last lecture is the HRM or OB, or first lecture is the marketing management. So it's depend upon that what is the basic time period, what is the subject, who is teacher, who is student. Students are graduation level or undergraduate level, or what is the main mindset of the student. Accordingly teacher behave that time. If students current situation is not good, they are not feeling well, they are not prepared for your lecture. So what is the main output of the lecture? So think about student psychology, students mindset. After that we take a lecture, or after that we take a counseling, or etc. After learning situation, the just like the learner, the learning process and learning situation and teaching situation, it suggests the techniques of teaching. Teaching doesn't mean that you take a book and pen and marker and blackboard that is sufficient for a student. Current situation is that firstly we face the student, and accordingly their mindset, accordingly their behavior, according their level of study. So accordingly that we face the students and we take a lecture, or after that. So main objective of the education is the development of the learner. It includes cognitive, affective, and psychomotor aspects of personality. Educational psychology suggests various tools and techniques for assessment and evaluation, such as performance test, oral test, and written test. It does not stop at measurement only. After the testing results of the test are analyzed, causes for poor performance, backwardness in any aspect of development is corrected by adjustment, or helped by guidance and counseling study habit. So examination techniques and learning styles are analyzed and help the learners so that he can overcome the difficulties. Our main purpose, or our main target is what? Main target and main objective is that student is satisfying their study. 100% satisfaction, their subject, their environment, and overall satisfaction of the subject. Education psychology emphasizes the need of knowing the self for a teacher to play his role properly in the process of education. It throws light on the essential personality traits, interests, aptitudes, the characteristics of effective teaching, so as to inspire, help teacher handle the stress, conflict, and anxiety by giving insight in their own personality. There are many times that student face many struggle, many stress. Uh, Suppose he go to a college, to a hostel life, then it's a very crucial time for the student, because he is a first time go for a study, and home environment and college environment and hostel environment, their campus environment, all environments are different types. So students takes it as a challenge that how can they face this situation. It essential personality traits. Everybody's personality is different. So how can we analyze the all over the personality traits of the student, that how can this time student face this situation? Teacher handle the stress. Teacher help the handle the stress conflict. There are many conflicts between inner conflicts and outer conflicts. Outer conflicts they face through the teachers and students in college environment and meeting to another persons. But inner conflict is very difficult because some persons and some students are very shy students, and some persons are very extrovert, and some students are introvert. So it's our duty, it's teachers duty, that how can we help to students and handle the stress, conflict, and anxiety by giving insight in their own personality. It's a very major role, that how can teacher helps the students. Knowledge of educational psychology helps teachers in, just like suppose to what is the decide the future of the learner, to focus the future behavior of the learner, improve learning situation by discerning learning's needs and interest, and to control the educational program. And there are some special types of children's. Suppose in a classroom 100 students, 99 students are very good, their mental stability is good, their background is good, their family history is good, but 2 to 3% students are not good, or their mental situation and their psychology and their behavior is not matched to the teachers or other students. Then these special type of children, it's a duty of the children that they face the students psychology and their conflict, their stress, and understand all over things. After understand all over things, all over problems and conflicts and stress, step by step, students out of the problem. After some time, students face difficulties, but after some time, it's teachers' duty that teaching the special type of children, and accordingly, their behavior, their attitude, their study, their class, just like they are undergraduate, postgraduate, or anything else. So it's duty of teachers. So you have analyzed the nature, definition, and psychology of learning. We have also discussed the psychological concept of learning. Important some methods of studying psychology of learning, and students, all the method to study psychology of learning are basically methods of general psychology. It's very interesting that how can handle and how can so, a brief review of the development of methods will be helpful for you to understand the importance of the subject in greater perspective. The first effort of conducting systematic experimental studies in psychology was started in 1879 in Germany with the establishment of first laboratory of psychology by William Wundt. So, the next important method of collecting data, and there are some important things, just like in the second decade of 20th century, psychology developed as an objective science of behavior by the efforts of Pavlo Watson. uh, Experimental and observation methods were developed to collect data to study behavior. This time simultaneously testing movement, starting with the introduction of statics in psychology, and Pavlovet's and experimental and observation methods were developed to collect data to study behavior. Many research are done only to this topic, that how can we observe and the students observation methods. Lecture is the second thing. First thing is what? First thing is that observation of students' behavior. Firstly, we observe the student behavior. If you observe the student behavior, then teaching is very easy. Teaching is not difficult. Firstly, we understand the psychology of a student, and next step is taking a lecture or any subject or any topic. So students study only the following methods of studying psychology of learning: introspection method, observation method, and experimental method. Introspection method. Students, at many times when you have experienced an emotion like anger or fear, you begin to think reasons for the state of yours. You say, why have I been annoyed over this or that? Why been afraid of such things? The analysis of your emotional state may take place simultaneously with the emotion, or it may be done after the emotional state is over. In whatever manner it is done, it gives you an understanding through rudimentary of your mind. This method of probing into your mental and many different refined manner. So what we mean by introspection? Introduction is the method of self observation. The word introspection is made up of two Latin words. Introspection is made up of two Latin words: intro meaning within, and aspection meaning looking. It is a method where an individual is looking within oneself. Introduction is a method of self observation. The word introspection is made up of two Latin words: intro meaning within and aspection meaning looking. So, looking inner, within, and looking. It is a method where an individual is looking within oneself. So, firstly, we look in oneself. And looking inward in introduction, the individual peeps into his own mental state and observes his own mental process. Stout considers that to introspect is to attain to the working of one's own mind in a systematic way. Introspection method is one of the oldest methods to collect data about the concise experiences of the subject. It is a process of self-examination where one perceives, analyzes, and reports one's own feelings. Let's learn this process with the help of an example. Suppose, uh, suppose you are happy, and in the state of happiness, you look within yourself. It is said you are introspecting your own mental feelings and examining what is going on in your mental process in the state of happiness. Similarly, you may introspect in a state of anger or fear, etc. Introspection is also defined as a notice, is the mind takes of itself. In both situations, we notice things. Just like if you are happy and in the state of happiness, you look within yourself. Yeah, I'm very happy, I'm very excited, I'm very excited about this project and this work and this subject. Instead, you are introspecting your own mental feelings and examining what is going on in your mental process in the state of happiness. Similarly, you may introspect in a state of anger or fear. Etc. Inspection is also defined as a notice, is the mind takes of itself. So, introspection, being self observation, has the following characteristics. The subject gets direct, immediate, and intuition knowledge about the mind. The subject has actually to observe his own mental process, he cannot speculate about them. Students' introduction method was widely used in the past. Its use in modern time is being questioned. It is considered unscientific and not in keeping with psychology, which has recently emerged out as a positive science. However, we may say that it is still being used. Positive science, however, we may say it is underdetermined, yet it is not totally discarded. So there are some benefits of introspection method. There are some merits of introspection method. Firstly, it is the cheapest and most economical method. We do not need any apparatus or laboratory for its use. This method can be used anytime and anywhere. You can introspect while walking, traveling, sitting on a bed, and so on. It is the easiest method and is readily available to the individual. The introspection method are first hand as the person himself examines his own activities. Introspection has generated research which gradually led to the development of more objective methods. It is still used in all experimental investigation. It is the only method with the help of which an individual can know his emotions and feelings. So, very famous author says that uh, uh, um, its importance of his matter in this that the data collection of introspection lacks validity and reliability. It is impossible to acquire validity and exactness in self-observation of one's own mental process. So the data collected by introspection in highly subjective. It has a danger of being biased and influenced by preconceptions of the individual. The observation of one's own mental process. So the data collected by introspection in highly subjective. It has a danger of being biased and influenced by preconceptions of the individual. The observer and the observed are the same. There is a ample scope for the individual to lie deliberately and hide the facts to mislead. Introspection cannot be applied to children, animal, and abnormal people. It requires highly trained and skilled workers to introspect. Introspection doesn't mean that it only work on animal and abnormal people. It requires highly trained and skilled students to introspect. Introspection is logically defective because one and the same person is the experiencer and observer. It is not possible for the same individual to act as an experiencer as well as an observer. So, their introspection is logically defective. The limitations of introspection can be overcome by practice and training, by remaining altered during introspection, and by comparing results obtained by experts. So, through this, you also students also check the progress of their all things, just like it's observation method. If you talk about the observation method, students, we observe so many things in nature. We also observe the action and behavior of others and form our own notions about these persons. We look at other persons, listen to their talks, and try to infer what they mean. We try to infer the characteristics, motivations, feelings, and intentions of others on the basis of these observations. So let's study about observation method employed by psychologists in detail. We teach them life skills, teach them the art of uh, the learning from anybody, any source, and any situation without any disruptions. Teach them adaptability and teach them patience and endurance of times of adversity. Teach them to be humble. It's teacher's duty. It's teacher's duty. It's our duty that what we observed. The development of psychology as an objective science of learning behavior, the method of introspection was replaced by careful observation of human and animal behavior to collect data by research workers. In introspection, we can observe learner profiles. We can observe the learner profiles, mental process of ourselves only. But in observation, we observe the mental process of others. Hence, observation is the most commonly used for the study of human behavior. Observation literally means looking outside oneself. Facts are collected by observing overt behavior of the individual in order to locate underlying problem and to study developmental trends of different types. The overt behavior is the manifestation of code conditions within the individual. The study of overt behavior gives indirectly the clue to the mental condition of the individual. Observation means perceiving the behavior as it is. In the words of Goods, Observation deals with the overt behavior of persons in appropriate situations. Observation has been defined as measurements without instruments. So, for example, students in classroom have been labeled as good, fair, or poor in achievement and lazy or diligent in study, etc. On the basis of observation, observation is indirect approach to study the mental process of others through observing their external behavior, body and mind. Because observing their external behavior, for example, if someone frowns, falls, winds his teeth, closes his fist, you would say that the person is angry by only observing these external signs of the behavior. Students in the process of observation, some steps are generally required. Firstly, observation of behavior. The first step involved in the method of observation is directly perceiving or observing the behavior of individuals. And I'll study for just like example, we want to observe the social behavior of children. We can observe it when they assemble and play. Recording the behavior observed. The observation should be carefully and immediately noted and recorded. Minimum time should be allowed to pass between happening and recording. It will make the observation more objective. Analysis and interpretation of behavior. When the notes of behavior observed are completed, they are analyzed objectively and scientifically in order to interpret the behavior patterns. Generalization. On the basis of analysis and interpretation of the data collected with the help of observation method, it is possible to make certain generalization. Social development and behavior of children have been described by child psychologists on the basis of generalization based upon analysis and interpretation of the data gathered through the observation method. There are basically two types of observation: natural observation and participant observation. Be a good guide. As a good guide, we should take only two types of observation. In natural observation, we observe the specific behavioral characteristics of behavior. In natural settings, subject do not become concise of the fact that their behavior is being observed by someone. Participant observation, uh, hence the observer observes in such a position which is least disturbing to the subject under a study. The specific behavior is observed in natural setting without subject getting concise that they are observed by someone. Non-participant observation permits the use of recording instruments and structured unstructured observation. Structured observation, here the observer in relevant setups or perform on the categories in terms of which he wishes to analyze the problem. The observer always keeps in view a frame of reference, time units, limits of an act. Unstructured observation, this is also called as uncontrolled or free observation. It is mainly associated with participant observation, in which the observer assumes the role of a member of the group to be observed. Here, the individual is observed when he is in the class, playground, or when he is moving about with his friends, and class follows without knowing that he is being observed. Observation is very useful method to study student and his behavior. Students' observation method being commonly used method, psychology. So there are some merits of a observation method being a record of actual behavior of the child, and it is more reliable and objective. Need of the or above all teach them to learn from the past, plan for the future, but always live in the present. It is an excellent source of information what actually happens in classroom. Be as a mentor. It is a study of an individual in a natural situation and is therefore more useful than the restricted study in the test situation. That the method can be used with children of all ages. Younger the child, the easiest is to observe him. This method has been found very useful with shy children. It can be used in every situation: physical activities, workshop, classroom situations as well. It is adaptable with both the individuals and the group. So, although observation is regarded as an efficient method for psychological studies, students yet it suffers from the following drawbacks or many drawbacks limitations. There is great scope for personal prejudices and bias of the observer, but be a mentor. We values can distort observation. Records may not be written and with 100% accuracy as the observations are recorded after the actions are observed. There is some time lag, but the observer may get only a small sample of study behavior. It is very difficult to observe anything that the student does or says. As far as possible, observation should be made from several events. It reveals the overt behavior only, behavior that is expressed and not that is within. It lacks replicability as each natural situation can occur only once. It's just looking at the drawbacks and observation method as psychologists have suggested various guidelines to the followed for making good observation. So let's find out which are these essential guidelines for making good observation or good observer or as a be mentor. So essential guidelines for making good observation: observe one individual at a time. It is desirable to focus attention or just one individual at a time in order to collect comprehensive data. Specific criteria for making observations: observations should be made over a period of time to have a real estimate of the true behavior of a person. It should be observed as frequently as possible. A single observation will not be sufficient to tell us that this is the characteristic of a student and this is the basic thing of the student. So, observation should be made in differing and natural situations in natural settings to increase its validity. For example, a student behaviors in the classroom may not be typical of him. Therefore, he should be observed in variety of settings to know the behavior most typical of the person. Observe the student in the context of the total situation. The observed facts must be recorded instantly, that is, just at the time of their occurrence. Otherwise, the observer may forget some of the facts and the recording may not be accurate. So, be a good counselor. It is better to have two or more observers, but be a good counselor. Observations should be made under favorable conditions. The observer should be in position to clearly observe what he or she is observing. There should not be any distraction or disturbances. One should also have an attitude free from any biases or prejudices against the individual being observed. Data from observations should be integrated with other data. While arriving at the final conclusion about the individual, one should put together all that we know about the individual from the other sources. Then we can give an integrated and comprehensive picture of the individual. These precautions must be borne in mind in order to have reliable observations. Be a good counselor, it's our duty, our responsibility that we show introspection method and observation method used in psychology of learning, but these methods lack scientific objectivity and validity. As a good counselor, uh, it is the method which is responsible for assigning the status of science to psychology. So let's learn from more about this experimental method, that basic concept and essentials of experimental method. Experiments are always conducted in laboratory, hence the laboratory is essential. Psychological experiments performed in this method essentially require two people: the experiment or group of experimenters who perform experiment, and the other is the subject or subjects on whom the experiment is performed. Flexible grouping, the key factor in this, that the controlling of conditions or variables. The term variable means that which can be varied or changed. By controlling the variables, we can eliminate the irrelevant conditions and isolate the irrelevant ones. We thus become able to observe the causal relationship between the phenomena, keeping all other conditions almost constant. Let's understand this by an example. If we try to study the effect of intelligence on academic by the experimental method, we will need to determine the causative relationship between the two phenomena, intelligence and academic achievement. First is intelligence and academic achievement. One of these variables, the effect of which we want to study, will be called the independent variable, and the other the independent variable. First is independent and second is dependent variable. Thus, the independent variable, it stands for cause, and the dependent variable is the effect of the cause. Other conditions like study habits, sex, socio-eco conditions, parental education, home environment, health, past learning memory, uh, and home environment, health, past learning memory, etc. exercise a good impact, which exercise a good impact upon one's achievement besides one's intelligence are termed interviewing variables. In experimentation, all such intervening variables are to be controlled. They are to be made constant or equalized, and the effect of only one independent variable is studied. So the intervening variable made constant are hence called as controlled variables. Motivate them individually. Motivate them individually. Ask them to and about social duties and find out the main problem and formulation of the observe that students cheat in the examinations. Students cheat in the examinations. So to stop it, many recommend strict supervision. But it has also been seen that even when there is strict supervision, there is cheating. Hence, there crops up the problem of cheating under strict supervision or relaxed supervision. This problem may lead to experimentation. Making a distinction between independent and dependent variables and effective learning, there are controlling the situational variables, analysis of the result. Once the experiment is concluded, the results are analyzed. In our example, we may apply simple percentages to find out in which type of supervision a higher percentage of students have copied. Many a times we apply more sophisticated statistics to analyze the result, but verification of heterogeneous experimental designs through this one group what is designed, this type of design is to the simplest ones. It is commonly called pre-experimental design. Students in such type of experiment, no formal comparison is possible for there is no second group with comparison can be made. Let's illustrate with an example. Suppose our teacher treats 10 students who are addicted to smoking in a period of 3 months. At the end of the period, 6 students give up smoking. Such type of designs do not control any of the sources of invalidity. But one group pretest post design. This is also simple design when it's considered to be a rather poor design through better than one group protest design. So the experimenter first tests a group or some aspects of behavior and then gives simple treatment or special treatment. He statically analyzes the data and calculates the difference between the pre-test and post-test scores of the group. So effective learning is very important and the paradigm of the design, just like pre-test, independent variable, post-test, two group designs, multi-group design with one independent variables, just like factorial analysis, merits, demerits, and what's the demerits and merits of the experimental designs. So students, we have learned in the student psychology of learning, but which of the above discussed method is the best among other four is difficult. So all the four methods have their strengths and weaknesses and possess some unique characteristics which make them highly specific for use in a particular situation. A wise psychologist should have a keen insight into the nature of his subjects as well as the conditions affecting his work. Accordingly, uh, Select a proper method or methods for the objectives. Study of the behavior of his students must depend upon the sincerity, honesty, ability, and experience of the investigator, who should always try to keep himself as scientific and objective as possible and leave no stone unturned for the overall analysis for the behavior of the subject or nature of the phenomena of the study. So, effective learning, there is a very if you talk about the growth and development, explain the concept of growth and development of the student, differentiate between growth and development, explain the principles of growth and development, and it's very important that be supportive, be accessible to students almost 24 is equal to 7. So, discuss the educational implications of the principles of growth and development, explain the role of the teacher in the facilitation of growth and development during adolescence. Human beings keep changing during their lives. They change in size, appearance, and psychological makeup. The the way they change differs from individual to individual. However, the fundamental underlying patterns of growth and development remain more or less the same and take place in an orderly way. Each individual made with his unique heredity and the way he is nurtured determines the way he traverses the broad highway of his life. At his rate of progress, he will attain the size, shape, capacities, and developmental status in a way which is peculiar to him at each stages of life. uh, Principles and various stages of growth and development. Children differ in physical, cognitive, social, and emotional growth patterns. They also differ in the ways they interact with and respond to their environment, as well as play, affection. Having an understanding of the sequence of growth and development prepares teachers to help and give attention to all the children. Okay, how we should human development of the student. Can you recall events from your early childhood, say the second or third year? You might have a few vague and blurred memories about your childhood. The experiences of that period form the basis of the type of person you are today. How human beings grow, change, and adjust themselves to their environment is the focus of development and behavior, as also the concepts, principles, and theories of growth of development. The human being is never static. From conception to death, we undergo changes. They are progressive changes in response to environmental conditions, body organs, psychological functions, so the curves of capacity and achievement, as well as slow erosion and decay. Cognitive abilities develop and then degenerate. Basic metabolism reaches a peak, then declines. The concept of growth and development. Growth refers to quantitative changes in size, which include physical changes in height, weight, size, internal organs, etc. As an individual develops, old features like baby fat, hair, and teeth, etc., disappear, and new features like facial hair are acquired. When maturity comes, the second set of teeth, primary and secondary sex characteristics, etc. Well-defined role play. Well-defined role play refers to just like the body steadily becomes larger, taller, and heavier. To designate this change, the term growth is used. Growth involves changes in body proportion as well as in overall stature and weight. The term growth thus indicates an increase in bodily dimensions, body to the other. So, well-defined role play make it clear that what is the main role and what is the main objective of your life, what is the main purpose of your life. So development refers to qualitative changes taking place simultaneously with quantitative changes of growth. It may be defined as a progressive series of orderly coherent changes. The term progressive signifies that changes are directional, that they lead forward rather than backward. Orderly and coherent suggest that a definite relationship between the changes taking place and those that decide or will follow them. Development represents changes in an organism from its origin to its death, but more particularly the progressive changes that make place from origin to maturity. So the principles of growth and development follows a pattern or a sequence and well-defined role play. What is the role? And development proceeds from general to specific responses. It moves from a generalized to localized behavior. The newborn infant moves its whole body at one time instead of moving only one part of it. It makes random kicking with its legs before it can coordinate the leg muscles well enough to crawl or to walk. So development is a continuous process. Development does not occur in sprouts. Growth continues from the moments of conception until the individual reaches maturity. It's it takes place at slow regular pace rather than by leaps and bounds. Although development is a continuous process, yet the growth it's not even. During infancy and early years, growth moves swiftly and later it's second. So be as a mentor, as a counselor, as a teacher, it's your duty, it's your responsibility that how can we observe our students behavior, their psychology, their it's just like a full-time job. It's like a 24 is equal to 7 job every time. And in your mind you think your students as a mentor, as a parents, it's your duty. Because some students we should give a special treatment and some students are normal, and it's a very basic thing that the young adulthood responsibilities of adulthood include important decisions like choosing a career, a life partner. Young adulthood begins with setting goals and aspirations. Middle adulthood after settling down in 30s and having lived through with routine phase, the individual starts feeling sense of uprooting and dissatisfaction during the 40s. A physical decline in the form of wrinkles, thickening, wasting, graying, and thinning hair start appearing. The changes are often termed middle life transition. So middle age reward, mid career crisis, or middle age slump. These terms point you the loss of youth and the coming of old age. In women, hormonal changes of menopause, ending of menstruation generate an anxiety and depression. And late adulthood. Late adulthood is a process which causes loss of vitality. Aged adults are more concerned about their health and death, and this visit to doctors is more frequent. Retirement has a worst impact on aged adults. They are gradually lose their sense of meaningless in life. So, physical development, cognitive development, effective teaching, emotional development. Individual temperament, parent and family relationships, support network, life experiences and transitions, media exposure, influence, and a tendency toward risk taking, delicate behavior, social development, peer influence, popularity, community, and social context. Physical development, genetic makeup, ethnicity, race, gender, nutrition, diet, exercise, sleep patterns, use of tobacco and alcohol or other drugs, stress and stressful life events, environmental toxins and socioeconomic status. So development characteristics of in infancy by to 2 years. Physical development, cognitive development, and cognitive begins with alertness, awareness, recognition, interest in visual, auditory, tactile stimuli. As mentor, as motor development improves, the infant begins to explore and manipulate objects and developments. So social development, the most important social task, if you are a good learner or a passionate teacher or as a passionate mentor, the most important social task is the development of attachment to the primary caretaker. Most often the child develops affectionate and trusting relationships with other family members and with adults outside the family. The child can also be engaged in simple games and play. So social development is very important, and emotional development, physical development, And after that, as a mentor, you check your progress. What is the progress of your students, and how can, what is the main parameter of the what things you done, and what is the current situation of the student, role of the teacher in facilitating growth and development. What we know about the child is vast and impressive. However, what we do not know is even more vast and overwhelming. Every new insight opens up new questions. Therefore, as a teacher, we need to update our knowledge about the problems of children. In the context of the media explosion, economic strivings, resultant social, cultural, and value changes, with this, we will be able to make a reliable diagnosis and apply the knowledge of child psychology to better their adjustment with themselves and with the world around them. We as a teacher should know what to expect from the child and what he needs physically, socially, and emotionally. The routine teacher taught relationship would not benefit him unless the students are dealt with empathetically as a social being, as an individual self, and as a biological organism. A teacher should accept and make our students accept the reality of physical and biological changes so that the transition takes a smooth course without causing any psychological disadvantages. We need to create such challenging conditions which may lead to the effective coordination of physical, mental, and other functions in order to ensure adequate adjustment to probable life situations. Yet another task that teachers should ensure is to secure effective and desirable responses and prevent or eliminate ineffective or undesirable ones. One way is to arrange conditions in a way that make desirable responses satisfying and not annoying. Positive training in self direction and self control should be given to students. Control and guidance must come from the student himself under the teacher's supervision. Harsh, strict, and unsystematic control and prescription of every detail of conduct, leaving no place for self control and self direction, are not conducive to students' mental health and adjustment to life's events. Proper guidance, rational benefits, and rational shifts of treatment and principles of autonomy should be judiciously applied to ensure smooth passage through the turbulent period of student. So it is around the adolescence stage that students reach the higher levels of their school education. Teacher need to receive adequate knowledge and skills with due preparedness in order to handle their emotional and social needs. As a teacher, we need to appreciate the fact that students at this stage are prone to revolt against established norms, rules, and authority. You should keep yourselves ready to provide explanations and rationale for the beliefs and values which your students would question. Students at this time need proper guidance to decide on the right course of action. They need supportive judgments to do things which provide them self confidence and self assurance. The range of individual differences in mental ability among adolescents is wide. You need to use some plan of classification to secure homogeneous groups and respect of significant abilities and achievements so that curricular and instructional needs can be suitably met. So studies have indicated that in certain tasks, a student's performance would improve when others. This phenomena is called social facilitation. This is not a universe phenomena. Still, other studies have shown that when a student is first trying and learn something new, the presence of others is detrimental. In such a situation, the teacher has to assess the situation and the personality traits of his students, and accordingly, these should facilitate their growth and development. So, the stages of development and the characteristics of each stage we also have discussed. The principles of development, their importance and need to study them scientifically have been discussed as you have seen. And adolescence is a period of transition between childhood and adulthood. Accompanying it is a number of problems during this period. Adolescents are considered neither as children nor as adults. Their status remains ambiguous. So they are prone to rebel against authority. What as a teacher we can do to attend to these problems and how we can help the development of a balanced personality of our students. have been dealt with in order to create a better understanding of students' needs and problems. So that's all from my side. If you have any questions, then please ask me.